claim will be to oppose the motion of legalizing physician-assisted suicide. For my first claim, I'd like to say that physician-assisted suicide violates the role of physicians to its patients. My opponent has mentioned the Hippocratic oath that doctors do take in order to prevent will to impose any harm to its patients. Under that belief, many American physicians are opposed to intentionally ending their patients' lives. According to Daniel Sulmasy, intentions matter in ethics, as intentionally ending someone's life violates a fundamental value of human dignity, which he describes as the value of the person themselves. Furthermore, the American College of Physicians continue to oppose the legalization of physician-assisted suicide by establishing the focus improving hospice and palliative care to ease the suffering of American patients. Due to the accepted culture of physician-assisted suicide, tolerance for non-voluntary euthanasia has increased in the world, especially in the Netherlands, where doctors may have hastened their patient's death due to a cultural shift that comes with passing legislation. According to an article published in The Telegraph, more than 500 patients have died in 2005 by doctors involuntarily. And this just gives an example that if we pass physician-assisted suicide, that a more tolerant behavior for murder for patients will increase. For my second claim, I'd like to say that choosing one's liberty over the decision to choose the person themselves can lead to the legalization of euthanasia. And according to Dr. Sulmasy, who is a professor in medicine and ethics in the University of Chicago, if interest takes over the people who have them, then assisting the patient's interest in suicide due to his loss of interest in living is certainly to be morally praiseworthy. However, that would also follow active euthanasia should be permitted, that severely demented people or patients could be euthanized without consent or even experimented on. This only follows in the process in which children are subjected to physician-assisted suicide will also be permitted because of this common ideology. Initially, when the Netherlands had legalized physician-assisted suicide in the 1970s and 1980s, this right was only limited to a small number of terminally ill patients as their last resort option. However, over time, the legislation has expanded to depressed patients as they have defined suffering to include depression. And furthermore, in 2011 or 2001, the Netherlands has expanded access to this assisted suicide to children of the ages 12 to 16. And this only gives an example to prove the slippery slope argument that legalizing physician-assisted suicide will only lead to the legalization of euthanasia and even furthermore just the presence of exposing children to vulnerability even if they have a terminal illness. My third claim, I'd like to say, passing national legislation in regards of legalizing physician-assisted suicide would only encourage ill patients to choose to take their own lives. In Arthur Thatcher's Physician-Assisted Suicide, the Great Canadian Euthanasia Debate, he states that the ill and the frail are particularly dependent on those around them and the healthcare system. Inevitably, and without realizing it, these individuals cede control over their lives to the system and those on they're dependent by. For this reason, it would be difficult for others to assess whether informed choice was made without coercion. If assisted suicide was legalized and accepted by the community, how can expectations of the people surrounding the patient not influence his or her decision, particularly if the patient feels that she or he is a burden on the family? Similarly, philosopher John Harding explains that if people are asked if they have a duty to die, generally they would believe that no such duty exists. However, he states, as many older people report that they have one remaining goal in life, and that is to not be a burden on their loved ones. And young people feel this too. So when he asks his undergraduate students to think about whether their death would come too late, one of their very first responses is always, if I become a burden to my family, then I will choose to take my own life. Tragically, there are situations that even he himself if he was to burden his loved ones, that he would wish that he was dead. Furthermore, a study published in the National Center of Biotechnology Information, legalizing physician-assisted suicide was associated with a 6.3 increase in total suicides, including which are assisted suicides. But furthermore, there are no found reduction in non-assisted suicide rates. And as well as your own loved ones pressuring you to take this route, according to the Washington Post, insurance companies also pressure their patients in choosing assisted suicide by refusing to cover life-saving treatments but offering to pay for these lethal prescriptions. Therefore, these are just 3 claims in regards to why physician-assisted suicide should not be legalized.